The audio's good. Okay. We're good. We're good. Okay. We're good. Everybody, we're good. Alright. Everybody. Alright. So, welcome to my first podcast. This is me talking about the Super Bowl. But before we get started, guys, make sure to hit that like button and let's get this thing going. Alright. So, here's what's going on. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the Chiefs Super Bowl podcast, because I did say that I would make a podcast about this. And here I am in my Super Bowl championship shirt. And we're going to talk about what made them better this year, and what made them, and how they were able enough to win another one, and what they did this year that made them better, and how they achieved last year's and made it into this year's. And I can see some people have joined the stream. I can see, let me just fix up something real quick. Alright, let me start a poll real quick. Actually, let's not start a poll. Alright, so what the Chiefs did this year was they went after what they did this year that made them. So what happened was when they won their first Super Bowl last year, they had all these wide receivers, and Mahomes was talented. And he did, I saw some of his games, and like what happened was he was incredible. He was showing like all these insane highlights, like against Tampa, and like give me a minute, like itches. Like the one where he's escaping from Tampa Bay's defense, where he stops and spins and flips it forward, and then he chucks the ball to Jerick McKinnon against the Broncos, and he went Michael Jordan up against the hang on, give me a quick minute real quick. Damn it. Okay, here goes nothing. Thing. And what happened was Mahomes went Michael Jordan up against the Bengals, and he fumbled the ball, but he broke the plane. And what happened was the Eagles defense, when they went to the Super Bowl, they played against Burrow, and what happened was in the AFC, so first they played, oh my god, who did they play first? Shoot. Who'd they play first? I think it was, it was the Jaguars, and Mahomes had a sprained ankle, and so what happened was they took him out of the game, and what happened was he couldn't play. He went to the locker room. Chad Henne came in and saved the day for Kansas City, and what happened was so then what happened was Joe Burrow comes in. So then what happens is they face off against Cincinnati. And what happens is they get past Joe Burrow by a field goal in order to get to the Super Bowl. And then what happens is they go up against Philadelphia. Now, keep in mind, I am an Eagles fan as well, but I love the Chiefs because of Andy Reid. I cannot say no to supporting Andy Reid. He used to coach the Eagles back in 2012, and what happened was the game was tied, right? So Jalen Hurts was throwing some touchdown passes. He threw one to A.J. Brown. He threw one to, I think he threw one to Devonta Smith, I think, too, as well. But anyway, the game was tied. They go for, the Eagles, it's like they tie the game. They go for two. They tie the game. So then what happens is this gives Mahomes an opportunity to go into the end zone. And what happens is he... hang on, real quick. This is a huge... And so what happens is Mahomes he has nobody open, so he scrambles while the Eagles defense tries to catch him, and they can't. And then they start with the run game with Pacheco as well, and they're able enough to get into field goal range to get themselves a chance to win the Super Bowl with 6 seconds left on the clock. So then what happens is Hurts has to pull off a miracle, and he does it. So then what happens is they win the Super Bowl, well, and they're celebrating, and then this year what happened was they got rid of like most of the players that they didn't have when they won the Super Bowl that year. They got rid of Hardman, they got rid of Juju, they got rid of they got rid of Thornhill. They got rid of Frank Clark. And what happens is they get Richie James. And, they have, no good players on the team. And everybody starts not believing in Kansas City. So what happens is they lose to Detroit. And they go up against Chicago, and then all of a sudden, he puts up 41 points against the Bears. So then he loses. So what the Chiefs did was they lost 6 games this year, but they won 11. So what happens is, and what happened was they had to get Pat in the playoffs. So what they did in the midseason was Mahomes was having struggles, and what happens is he goes back and tries to get Hardman back. So then what happens is Mecole Hardman comes back to Kansas City, and then some of the struggles do continue, but Mahomes finds a way to stop struggling and bring the team back to the Super Bowl. And what happens is they go to the playoffs and they play against the Miami Dolphins. And what happens is they were able enough to get past Tua and Tyreek Hill. And then they move on to Josh Allen and the Bills. And they were like, oh, and what happened was some people weren't believing in Kansas City. So what happens is some people were like, they're having trouble with their receivers. They need better receivers. And what happens is Mahomes gets past the Bills because the Bills missed a field goal. And Josh Allen was, and what happens next is Burrow, and they go on to move, no, not Burrow, sorry. What happens is they move on to the Ravens, and what happens is they play against Lamar Jackson, and what happens is Lamar Jackson's the first seed, and so it was going to be a good game, and it was 10-10. Mahomes throws a touchdown pass, and then it's 17-10. Then what happens is Lamar Jackson struggles. And what happens is because of that, that Mahomes was able enough to get his team and his well-played defense to the Super Bowl. And then what happens is they go to the Super Bowl and they're playing against the toughest team in the NFC, the 49ers. Like, they were really good. They're a really good team. They had Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel. Give me a minute real quick. Yeah. Dude, yes. Sorry about that. But they have Deebo Samuel, they have Brendan Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy. And what happens is... Hang on, give me a minute. And what happens is they start... So they were struggling against the Niners defense, but they hang on to come back and win it. So then what happens is Mahomes is down by like a field goal. So he marches down the field. He gets his team into field goal range. And what happens is he goes into overtime with Brock Purdy and the Niners. And now all of a sudden it's sudden death. So now now the coin toss comes up and they lose it, and the Niners get the ball back, and the Niners are already in the end zone, and what's happening is they weren't able enough to get the touchdown, but they were able enough to get the field goal. But that's not enough to get them and that wasn't enough to win them the Super Bowl. So then what happens is it gives Mahomes a chance to go back to back. So what happens is he starts marching down the field. He starts throwing passing touchdowns. And then when they're at the 10-yard line, Mahomes sees Cole Hardman for the game-winning touchdown and to give them a back-to-back title that has not happened in a long time. Give me a quick minute. And what happens is Mahomes finally gets a chance. Give me a minute.
Hey, who are you talking to?
No, I'm doing a podcast.
Oh, I didn't know. You were talking to the internet then.
No, I'm doing a podcast. Come on. Come on, get in. And what happens is they were able enough to go back-to-back titles. And what happens is everybody's so happy. And Mahomes was give me a minute. Sorry. Cooper, get in. Never mind. Get in. Get in. Get in. And what happens is they go back to back. And what happens is Mahomes is mic'd up and he wants a third. He wants to go, and Chiefs fans want them to get a third ring. So how I see it is Mahomes improved on his receivers because he didn't have the same receivers last year than he did this year. He had Kadarius Toney, which the Giants were willing to trade with the Chiefs last year. And what happened was they give him up to the Chiefs because obviously that's the Giants. But obviously because the Giants were struggling. But what happens is they go after Richie James, and I've been saying this all year. They need to get rid of Richie James. And they had Marcus Valdes-Scantling, and what happened was he was struggling with Scantling, and he finds a way to come back, and they find a way to come back and connect to each other again. He was throwing deep. He was missing on the deep routes. He was missing him on the deep routes, but he was able enough to connect to him on the deep routes. Same thing with McCole. Well, now with McCole Hardman, but he has McKinnon and whatnot. And I think, honestly, what the Chiefs need to do this year is go after Marvin Harrison Jr. and get some guys in order to win a third Super Bowl, because it's not going to be easy. Let me tell you, going back-to-back with the Miami Heat, with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, that's the last back-to-back title that I know right now. Well, and Tom Brady with his Patriots, with his New England Patriots. And I hope you all enjoyed this podcast. If you did, make sure to hit the like button. And I will see you all in the next video or the next stream. Adios.